StoryChimes!
The Ugly Duckling by Hans Christian Andersen. It was lovely summer weather in the country. The golden corn, the green oats, and the haystacks piled up in the meadows looked beautiful. The stork, walking about on his long red legs, chattered in the Egyptian language, which he had learned from his mother. The cornfields and meadows were surrounded by large forests, in the midst of which were deep pools. It was delightful to walk about in the country. In a sunny spot stood a pleasant old farmhouse close by a deep river, and from the house down to the water's edge grew great burdock leaves so high that under the tallest of them a little child could stand upright. The spot was as wild as the center of a thick wood. In this snug retreat sat a mother duck on her nest, watching for her young brood to hatch. She was beginning to get tired of her task, for the little ones were a long time coming out of their shells, and she seldom had any visitors. The other ducks much preferred to swim about in the river, rather than to climb the slippery banks and sit under the burdock leaf and speak to her. At length, one shell cracked, and then another, and from each egg came a living creature that lifted its head and cried, "Quack, quack," said the mother duck. And then they all quacked as well as they could, and looked about them on every side at the large green burdock leaves. "How large the world is," said the young ducks, when they found out how much more room they now had than when they were inside their eggshells.
"Do you imagine this is the whole world?"
asked the mother duck.
"It stretches far beyond that to the parson's field, but I myself have never ventured to such distance."
She paused, looking down at the newborns.
"Are you all out?"
she continued.
"No, I declare the largest egg lies there still. I wonder how long this is to last. I'm quite tired of it."
And she seated herself again on the nest.
"One egg is not hatched yet,"
said the mother duck.
"It will not break. But just look at the others. Are they not the prettiest little ducklings you ever saw? They are the image of their father."
"Let me see the egg that will not break,"
said the old duck.
"I have no doubt it is a turkey's egg. I was persuaded to hatch some once. After all my care and trouble with the young ones, they are afraid of the water. Can you imagine?"
The old duck squinted her eyes as she looked closer at the large unhatched egg.
"Yes, that is a turkey's egg, all right. Take my advice. Leave it where it is and teach the other children to swim."
"I think I will sit on it a little while longer,"
said the mother duck.
"I have sat so long already. A few days more will be nothing."
"As it pleases you,"
said the old duck, and she went away. At last, the large egg broke. The newly hatched bird was very large and very ugly. The mother duck stared at it and exclaimed,
"It is very large and not at all like the other ducklings. I wonder if it really is a turkey." We shall soon find out, however, for when we go to the water, it must go in, even if I have to push it myself.
The next day, the weather was delightful, and the sun shone brightly on the green burdock leaves. So the mother duck took her young brood down to the water and jumped in with a big splash.
"Quack, quack,"
cried she, and one after another, the little ducklings jumped in. The water closed over their heads, but they came up again in an instant and swam about quite prettily, with their legs paddling under them as easily as possible. and the ugly duckling was also in the water swimming with them.
Oh,
said the mother duck.
that is not a turkey at all. Look how well he uses his legs, and how upright he holds himself. He is my own child, and he is not so very ugly after all if you look at him properly. Quack, quack. Come with me now. I will take you into grand society and introduce you to the farmyard. But you must keep close to me, or you may be trodden upon. And above all, be aware of the cat.
When they reached the farmyard, there was a great disturbance. 2 families of ducks were fighting for a fish, which, after all that, was carried off by the cat.
See, children, this is the way of the world,
said the mother duck, wetting her beak, for she would have liked the fish herself.
Come now, use your legs, and let me see how well you can behave. You must bow your heads prettily to that old duck over there. She is the eldest of them all, and has Spanish blood. Therefore, she is well off. Don't you see, she has a red flag tied to her leg, which is something of a great honor for a duck. It shows that she is very precious, and she can be recognized both by man and beast. Come now, don't turn your toes. Well-bred ducklings spread their feet wide apart just like their father and mother in this way. Now, bend your neck and say, quack.
The ducklings did as they were told, but one duck stared at the mother duck and her children and said,
Look, here comes another brood, as if there were not enough of us already. What a weird-looking one that one is. We don't want him here.
And then one duck flew out and bit the ugly duckling in the neck.
Leave him alone,
said the mother duck.
He's not doing any harm.
Yes, but he's so big and ugly,
said the spiteful duck.
and therefore he must be turned away.
The others are very pretty children,
said the old duck with the red rag on her leg.
all but that one. I wish his mother could improve him a little. That is impossible, your grace,
replied the mother duck.
He is not pretty, but he has a very good disposition, and swims as well or even better than the others. I think he will grow up handsome, and perhaps taller than the others. He has remained too long in the egg, and therefore his figure is not properly formed. The other ducklings are graceful enough,
said the old duck.
Now, make yourself at home, and if you can find fish, you can bring them to me.
And so they made themselves comfortable. But the poor duckling, who had crept out of his shell last of all, and looked so ugly, was bullied and pushed and made fun of, not only by the ducks, but by all the poultry. And the rooster, who had been born into the world with spurs and fancied himself an emperor, puffed himself out like a vessel in full sail, and flew at the ugly duckling. He became quite red in the head with passion, so that the poor duckling did not know where to go. The duckling was quite miserable, because he was so ugly and laughed at by the whole farmyard. So it went on from day to day, getting worse and worse. The poor duckling was made fun of by everyone. Even his brothers and sisters were unkind to him. The other ducks pecked him, the chickens bullied him, and the girl who fed the poultry kicked him with her feet. So at last he ran away, frightening the little birds in the hedge as he flew over the fence. "They are afraid of me because I am ugly," he said. So he closed his eyes and flew still farther, until he came out on a large moor, inhabited by wild ducks. Here he remained the whole night, feeling very tired and sorrowful. In the morning, when the wild ducks rose in the air, they stared at their new comrade.
What sort of duck are you?
They all asked, gathering round him. He bowed to them and was as polite as he could be, but he did not reply to their question.
You are exceedingly ugly,
said the wild ducks.
but that matters not to us.
All the duckling wanted was permission to lie among the brush and drink some of the water on the moor. After he had been on the moor 2 days, there came along 2 wild geese, or rather goslings, for they had not been out of the egg long, and they were very saucy.
Listen, friend,
Said one of them to the duckling.
you are so ugly that we like you very well. Will you go with us and become a bird of passage? Not far from here is another moor, in which there are some pretty wild geese, all unmarried. It is a chance for you to get a wife. You may be lucky, ugly as you are.
Pop, pop, sounded in the air, and the 2 wild geese flew away fast. Pop, pop, echoed far and wide in the distance, and whole flocks of wild geese rose up from the brush. The sound continued from every direction, for many sportsmen surrounding the moor, and some were even seated on branches of trees overlooking the brush. The blue smoke from the guns rose like clouds over the dark trees, and as it floated away across the water, a number of sporting dogs bounded in among the brush, which bent beneath them wherever they went. How they terrified the poor duckling! The ugly duckling turned away his head to hide it under his wing. And at the same moment, a large, terrible dog passed quite near him. His jaws were open, his tongue hung from his mouth, and his eyes glared fiercely. He thrust his nose close to the duckling, showing his sharp teeth, and then, splash, splash, he went into the water without touching him. "Oh," sighed the duckling, "how thankful I am for being so ugly that even a dog will not bite me." And so he lay quite still, while the shots rattled through the brush, and gun after gun was fired over him. It was late in the day before all became quiet. But even then the young duckling did not dare to move. He waited quietly for several hours, and then, after looking carefully around him, he hastened away from the moor as fast as he could. He ran over field and meadow till a storm arose, and he could hardly struggle against it. Towards evening, he reached a poor little cottage that seemed ready to fall, and only remained standing because it could not decide which way to fall first. The storm continued so violent that the duckling could go no farther. He sat down by the cottage and noticed that the door was not quite closed because of one of the hinges had given away. Therefore, there was a narrow opening near the bottom large enough for him to slip through, which he did very quietly, and had shelter for the night. A woman, a tomcat, and a hen lived in this cottage. In the morning, the strange visitor was discovered, and the tomcat began to purr, and the hen to cluck.
What is that noise about?
Asked the old woman, looking round the room. But her eyesight was not very good. Therefore, when she saw the duckling, she thought it must be a fat duck that had strayed from home.
Ooh, what a prize!
She exclaimed.
We can have eggs.
So the duckling was allowed to remain there on a trial basis for 3 weeks, but no eggs were produced. Now the tomcat was the master of the house, and the hen was mistress, and they always said,
"We are the world here in this house."
for they believed themselves to be half the world, and the better half too. The duckling thought that others might hold a different opinion on the subject, but the hen would not listen to such doubts.
"Can you lay eggs?"
She asked.
"No."
So the duckling sat in a corner, feeling very low-spirited, till the sunshine and the fresh air came into the room through the open door. And then he began to feel such a great longing for a swim on the water that he had to share this desire with them.
"What an absurd idea,"
said the hen.
"You have nothing else to do, therefore you have foolish fancies. If you could purr or lay eggs, then you would have purpose enough, and not wish for such things."
"But it is so delightful to swim about on the water," said the duckling, "and so refreshing to feel it close over your head while you dive down to the bottom."
"Delightful indeed,"
said the hen.
"Why, you must be crazy. Ask the cat. He is the cleverest animal I know. Ask him how he would like to swim about on the water, or to dive under the water, for I will not speak of my own opinion."
"You don't understand me," said the duckling.
"We don't understand you? Who can understand you, I wonder? Do you consider yourself more clever than the cat or the old woman? I will say nothing of myself. Don't imagine such nonsense, child, and thank your good fortune that you have been received here. Are you not in a warm room?"
The hen moved in a little closer.
"But you are a chatterer, and your company is not very agreeable. Believe me, I speak only for your own good. I may tell you unpleasant truths, but that is proof of my friendship. I advise you, therefore, to lay eggs and learn to purr as quickly as possible."
"I believe I must go out into the world again," said the duckling.
"Yes, then do go,"
said the hen. So the duckling left the cottage, and soon found water on which he could swim and dive. But he was avoided by all the other animals because of his ugly appearance. Autumn came, and the leaves in the forest turned to orange and gold. Then, as winter approached, the wind caught them, and they fell and whirled in the cold air. The clouds, heavy with hail and snowflakes, hung low in the sky, and the ravens stood on the ferns crying, "Croak, croak." It made one shiver with cold just to look at him. All this was very sad for the poor little duckling. One evening, just as the sun set amid radiant clouds, there came a large flock of beautiful birds out of the bushes. The duckling had never seen anything like them before. They were swans, and they curved their graceful necks while their soft plumage shone with dazzling whiteness. They uttered a singular cry as they spread their glorious wings and flew away from those cold regions to warmer countries across the sea. As they mounted higher and higher in the air, the ugly duckling felt quite a strange sensation as he watched them. He whirled himself in the water like a wheel, stretching out his neck towards them, and uttered a cry so strange that it frightened even himself. He could never forget those beautiful, happy birds. And when at last they were out of his sight, he dived under the water and rose again almost beside himself with excitement. He knew not the names of these birds or where they had flown, but he felt something for them that he had never felt for any other bird in the world. The winter grew colder and colder. The duckling was obliged to swim about on the water to keep it from freezing. But every night, the space on which he swam became smaller and smaller. At length, It froze so hard that the ice in the water crackled as he moved, and the duckling had to paddle with his legs as well as he could to keep the pace from closing up. He became exhausted at last and lay still and helpless, frozen fast in the ice. Early in the morning, a peasant who was passing by saw what had happened. He broke the ice in pieces with his wooden shoe and carried the duckling home to his wife. The warmth of the house revived the poor little creature. But when the children wanted to play with him, the duckling thought they would do him some harm. So he started up in terror, fluttered into the milk pan, and splashed the milk about the room. Then the woman clapped her hands, which frightened him still more. The duckling flew first into the butter churn, then into the meal tub, and out again. What a condition he was in! The woman screamed and struck at him with the tongs. The children laughed and screamed and tumbled over each other in their efforts to catch him. But luckily, the duckling escaped. The door stood open, and the poor creature could just manage to slip out among the bushes and lie down quite exhausted in the newly fallen snow. He escaped and sought shelter in the forest. On the first morning of spring, he felt the warm sun shining and heard the lark singing and saw that all around was beautiful spring. Then the young bird felt that his wings were strong as he flapped them against his sides, and he rose high into the air. The apple trees were in full blossom, and the fragrant trees bent their long green branches down to the stream, which wound round a smooth lawn. Everything looked beautiful in the freshness of early spring. From a thicket close by came 3 beautiful white swans, rustling their feathers and swimming lightly over the smooth water. The duckling remembered the lovely birds from before and felt more strangely unhappy than ever. "I will fly to those royal birds," he exclaimed, "and they will reject me as well because I am so ugly. I probably dare not approach them because it does not matter. Better to be rejected by them than pecked by the ducks, beaten by the hens, pushed about by the maiden who feeds the poultry, or starved with hunger in the winter." Then he flew to the water and swam towards the beautiful swans. The moment they espied the stranger, they rushed to meet him with outstretched wings. "Don't send me away," said the poor sad bird, and he bent his head down to the surface of the water and waited. But what did he see in the clear stream below? His own image, no longer a dark gray bird, ugly and disagreeable to look at, but a graceful and beautiful swan. To be born in a duck's nest in a farmyard is of no consequence to a bird if it is hatched from a swan's egg. He now felt so much joy and happiness around him, for the great swans swam round the newcomer and stroked his neck with their beaks as a welcome. Into the garden came some little children, and they threw bread and cake into the water. "See," cried the youngest, "this is a new one, and the most beautiful one at that." Then the swan felt quite embarrassed, and he hid his head under his wing, for he did not know what to do. He was so happy. All his life he had been despised for his ugliness, and now he heard them say he was the most beautiful of all the birds. Even the elder tree bent down its boughs into the water before him, and the sun shone warm and bright. Then he rustled his feathers, curved his slender neck, and cried joyfully from the depths of his heart, "I never dreamed of such happiness as this while I was an ugly duckling."
If you enjoyed this story chime, check out our other exciting titles.